What's up, comic? Hey, whoa! I guess it's working now. What's up, Comics World? This is Splendopia. I'm Rob Casey. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Ghost Rider, one of my all-time favorite, probably my all-time favorite superhero. I would say, except that, truthfully, everybody's favorite superhero is Batman, and I am not immune to Batman's charms. I was fortunate enough to buy pretty much a complete lot of the original Ghost Rider run, and I just started cracking them open, and a lot of stuff stands out to me. I'm a big Ghost Rider fan, but truthfully, my era is the Dan Ketch era. I had all those, and his crossovers with Johnny Blaze, who is this original Ghost Rider. Dan Ketch is, of course, the Ghost Rider from the '90s, and then there's been a couple Ghost Riders since. Robbie Reyes with the car, the Charger, is a pretty good one. I got into these, and like I said, some things stand out. Of course, here's the first one, Ghost Rider #1, and pop it open, and the writer is Gary Friedrich. I guess Friedrich is how you pronounce it. I'm bad at pronouncing names. My name is Casey, but it's spelled the way people pronounce it, sassy or khaki. So I understand. Sorry, Gary. Gary died earlier this year. He's considered the creator of Ghost Rider. He sued Marvel in 2000 ish, I guess 2007 or so, for the rights. They were producing movies with Nick Cage, and Marvel got like a pretty like severe judgment against him, to the point where he had to pay them back, and he was not allowed to use Ghost Rider. He wasn't allowed to produce original art or credit himself, like at conventions or whatever, as the creator of Ghost Rider. So that was like, a huge hit to his livelihood. I understand. That was overturned, I think, on appeals, and then I think they worked out a settlement together. I think that's how it worked, but I didn't follow that court case as closely as I follow some of the recent ones in comic books right now. And if you've heard of Mark Waid and Diversity in Comics, you know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to crack this open. This is like, there's a couple things that were disappointing, I guess, about going back and reading these original Ghost Riders. One is he's introduced in Marvel Spotlight, so I didn't really like research it. I thought I'd go back and buy these, and I'd be pretty happy with where I jumped in on the story. But in these first issues, they're carrying over a story from Marvel Spotlight, so you're sort of getting like right in the middle of it, and it's not quite as satisfying. I love these old ads. There's one, if I can find it, that I really, really like. So Johnny Blaze in this incarnation, it seems like he's gotten his powers. He made a deal with the devil, not to save his own dad, but to save Roxanne, I guess, his girlfriend's dad. And maybe, I guess if I remember right, he was like working at a stunt school, like a stunt bike school with Johnny. Maybe that's right, but I missed that one. You sort of get recapped on it. So that's a little less impactful. It's not like as strong as him saving his own dad. That's one of the ones that you understand why they went with the Nick Cage choice. The other thing is he's got kind of like a Wolfman. It's not even like the Incredible Hulk. It's like he turns into Ghost Rider at night. So there's all this contrivance in these first issues, where he's like, first of all, he got shot, so he's gonna die if he doesn't get hospital treatment. But he won't die as the Ghost Rider, because he's essentially already dead, as you can see. Is he alive or dead, the Ghost Rider? So that kind of pushes. That's like, one of the factors in the story. There's also this other character who's being possessed, and the story kind of goes back and forth, I guess, between spotlights. I'll have to read the spotlight to get the rest of it. But that's like what's going on in these first couple of issues. So it's cool. It was cool for me to get the issue. It's cool to read it. I'm gonna go through some of these letter pages too, because the letter pages are really interesting as they're trying to grow this audience for Ghost Rider. And the series is kind of trying to find its footing, and they're printing a bunch of letters where they're being criticized. The kinds of criticisms, you might say, that like critics like Diversity in Comics level against some Marvel titles now. But back then, they would print those letters and they would respond to them, and they would try to eat crow a little bit, or make an explanation, or say, yeah, like that's probably like not not what we should have done. So, these guys. This is the character from that first one. She's been possessed into the witch woman, and Ghost Rider is out with Rocky. This is the new character that they're going to introduce back into Spotlight, I guess, to take over Ghost Rider's role. And then there's a cycle gang that they've got to do battle with. So that's what's going on in the second issue. It's again, they're just kind of like, it's kind of going back and forth. So it's interesting. Ghost Rider, this is like one of his many trips into hell. And so, the cataclysmic conclusion. So it's interesting to read these stories, but I'm missing quite a bit by not having the Spotlight issues. Here is the continuation of the story. And when we get here, this is, like I said, the new character coming out of Spotlight. I don't know this guy. What is this guy's name? I've forgotten it. I guess they call him the Son of Satan. And so these two, this is like one of those things where Ghost Rider's got to, he's got to get back to the hospital before he wakes up, because he got shot, and because she's been using the power of Satan, she is able to tell him how to use his power to create this flaming, hellfire. It's not even a hellfire powered bike. It's a complete manifestation of hellfire, this bike, enough to get him back into town. Actually, he has to, meanwhile, Rocky, he's been in hell, and Rocky is still tied up with this biker gang. So, he's going to find himself in the hospital after this crash, and the story's going to kind of reset from there. There we go. He wakes back up, and now even you thought she was in jeopardy, but she wasn't really in jeopardy. She just she just like had the biker guys make a deal with her to like sell her back to Johnny Blaze, because they know that he's in the hospital, because everybody is familiar with Johnny Blaze in this book. So there's just some discontinuity to the stories. There's a lot of fits and starts. It's definitely a little clunky. Still like really, really fun. I mean, the Ghost Rider looks like a great character. All this stuff that I'm complaining about is him like causing car crashes, and hanging out with beautiful women and fighting Satan, and biker gangs, which at face value is pretty awesome stuff. This situation, he's like basically has to like give the cops a slip until he comes to, and then has them deliver him, I guess he's got to go back to the hospital. So this is issue 4. This has been going on for a long time. This sort of back and forth of the full moon kind of transformation. Meanwhile, Rocky is like works out, well, it's all kind of convoluted, but they work out a deal to get him like working at a it's like a demolition derby. They're gonna give Johnny a job. That's gonna get him out of the trouble with the police, and that's gonna get everybody back together. And then there's the woman, I guess the witch woman, that Johnny left in the desert, and she shows up kind of at the end of them all figuring out that Johnny's gonna go work for this guy. and is like, oh no, I should claw Rocky's eyes out because she's jealous, but she's gonna bide her time. And so what happens? 2 months pass, and Johnny, recovers, and they're doing their thing, and then Rocky is about to walk in on something, and there she is. So she let 2 months pass, and now Rocky is so mad that it's gonna cause all this conflict. This is what I'm talking about with. I'm gonna get to the letters pages later because these are pretty good. About why I like the way they manage this comment. Like the entire creative team are positive they had nothing to do with why you dislike the issues. Everybody. Well, sorry, basically. So there you go. So now Johnny's in a love triangle again, like a little bit contrived. And he's riding his Hellfire bike around in this book. And Rocky finds out that that this guy's up to no good, and she walks in on him, making his plots, arranged to have an accident. Now she's going to be in trouble. She's got to go tell the Attorney General, who was the guy that in some ways like set these guys up to work at this demolition derby. And so here's the craziest thing. This is what I'll take you to the letters pages about. This is Johnny's Hellfire bike. Desperately, but futilely, he kicks at the cycle's starter. 2 tons of solid steel. Okay, so it's no use. She won't crank up. Like, how can he survive? So the bike won't start. For some reason, the Hellfire bike won't start. It won't crank up. And then there's a Deus Machina that gets him out of it, and we're on to the next issue. So what's crazy about how this story kind of unfolds is that this guy who was set up in the next issue who was set up by the cops to okay, you do this job, the Attorney General wants you to do this job, working at the demolition derby, it'll get you all out of trouble, is actually a demon. He actually transforms into this he's got Rocky, he's a demon. So I didn't see that coming. That was a twist that I did not think they set up very well in the last issue. But it does change the nature of the conflict. It gives Ghost Rider a villain of size enough to challenge him. And it's not so bad after all. Here's another thing that's great about the old Marvel books is the Stan Lee soapbox, where Stan Lee, is promoting the book, and I feel like what regarding the whole diversity in comics situation and Mark Waid, a lot of the reason that all happened was this sort of failure by Marvel to manage their social media outreach, to manage it on people's personal accounts, of course, because of all the conflict that people would get into sniping back and forth when when people had critiques of the issues. But also, if you look at what Marvel's doing on YouTube, there's no wonder it's super embarrassing to have guys like Diversity in Comics and Ethan Van Sciver with tens of thousands of subscribers, and they're so so interested in their regular content that every video racks up 8,000, 10,000, or 20,000 views, something like that. And the conflict definitely drives some of that stuff. People want to go see what's happening, but back in the day, you had Stan Lee bending over backwards trying to get you excited about his book. I think maybe I missed the letters page on this. I know there's let's take a look. There we go. Here we go. It is right. So, dear company, I just got through reading Ghost Rider 4, and I must admit it was superbly done. So that's pretty nice. I wrote to ask about the mistake you made. How can a cycle made entirely from flame just suddenly stop? So the interesting thing is, I was annoyed by that when I read it. And for the next couple of issues, they just keep printing letters about it. So that happens. That happens here. This subplot kind of changes. He goes to take on the Zodiac, and the Zodiac kind of transforms from his incarnation with when he fought the Avengers. And there we go. So it's a little bit more. I'm trying to see. It's hard to scan this letter in. Well, I thought this one had a letter too, also about the fire. But another 1970s esque hero that was rebooted in the 90s that I really got into is Deathlock. So in addition to buying some Ghost Rider comics recently, I bought a bunch of Deathlock comics, and I'm also going to be reading through those and kind of going through my thoughts about them. This is like pretty much a good place to stop, I think. 7 issues in, a lot more issues to go. I'm going to keep reading, and I'm going to keep giving you my thoughts on them. Thanks for watching my channel, and thanks for checking out this video. Everybody have a great day.